Hi, this is Bert Ingley with Ultimate Soccer Coaching, here with my good coaching buddy, Sheldon Cipriani, or Coach Sip. And I've got another question we're going to tackle today. This one's a little bit more ambitious, so we'll go after it. The question is, at what age would you recommend introducing the flat back four, and do you have any training activities which focus on the flat back four that you can share today?
The flat back four obviously is a system almost every team utilizes. The sweeper is non-existent in today's game. They're dual center backs, and they maintain a line. It's really important though that you don't implement a system because you've seen it work somewhere else.
Right.
So the first thing I'll say about a flat back four is that you have to have the right personnel, because there are times when you're playing without cover. So first and foremost, you have to have a very athletic group, so that if someone does beat the offside line or the offside trap, that you have the ability to recover. It's also important that you have a goalkeeper that is very good at staying connected to the back four.
Mm-hmm.
Because if your line's high and the goalkeeper is daydreaming, or he or she is solidified to the line, a ball over the top, a team that has some pace may get in behind you and may pick it up before the goalkeeper gets to confront them. So the goalkeeper has to be a little bit higher off the line, usually when you're playing with a flat back four. And it's used obviously to make the field smaller, to compress the playing area that the opponent has. So what age do you want to introduce the flat back four? Again, will determine on the ability of your players, and the prerequisites that is required to play a flat back four. Flat back four is not successful if you don't have players in front of the back four that work very hard to close players down. You have to have midfielders that are very hard working, that make other players put their heads down and play quickly, and play out of panic. If your midfield is not good at closing teams down, then anyone can pick their head up, and they can pick you apart. They can look for runs coming from deep, and then it negates what you're trying to accomplish. It's also important that you understand that you teach principles of defending, before you get into a system that does your defending for you. There's a big difference. A lot of coaches rely on a system to do the defending for them, and they don't teach kids principles of defending. And when I say principles of defending, I'm talking about simple things like pressure, cover, balance. The pressuring player has to make the opponent put their head down. The player that provides cover is denying the immediate passing lanes, and if the first defender happens to be beat, there's someone to engage him right away. And the balancing player, they respect and they protect the weak side space. So there are a lot of things to take into consideration before you implement a system like that. So your kids have to be at a certain level technically, certainly tactically, psychologically, and we spoke about physicality and the recovery speed. So once you're happy that those four pillars of the game have been satisfied, you can feel free to implement that. I've seen people implement a flat back four as early as U13. If I were to do it, I would probably do it at U14, because at U13 kids are playing 11-a-side for the first time.
Right.
So they have to understand that defending in an 11-a-side game is completely different than defending in an 8v8 game. There's a lot more field space to negotiate.
Right.
So I would spend more time on principles of defending in the 11-a-side game, as opposed to a system that kids will start to rely on. Right. So that they don't have to work defensively.
What kind of system would you go with like, say, a U13 team? If you're not going to go into a flat back four.
In today's game, the four across the back is almost always flat. So I would play with dual center backs, but what they have to understand is that there are times in the game when you don't need to chase players. So if there's a line, usually an organized back four looks like a line. Some are flat and some are diagonal. from where the ball is.
Right.
So the weak side space is protected.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a
So
curve
whatever you
element.
decide based on your player personnel, they have to understand that the back four has to be connected. So that's what I stress with young players, is that the four of you have to be connected and not disjointed. So you can't have one center back that's deep, one that's high, an outside back that's deep, and an outside back that's high, because now
Right.
it's a zigzag. So they're not unified in what they're doing. So we either collectively drop off or we collectively step. So the activities that you can use, you can play games that require the back four to step up. So let's say we have the field divided into halves. In order for your team to score a goal, everyone has to be in the half that we're trying to score in.
Sure.
So the first thing it teaches is us staying compact and us staying connected. And then we can do functional exercises where we use the 18-yard line as a gauge. And so we're not going to go back into the 18. And that way, it's called defending the 18-yard line. So we stop backing up at the 18. So it does a few things for us. It leaves the 18 for the goalkeeper to command.
Yeah.
And it also forces teams to play the ball into an area of the field that the goalkeeper is probably going to get to before an attacker does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Because their starting position now is deeper, relatively. And that's just a very simple way to do it. Because the kids are younger, and if you were to try to set your line of confrontation at midfield, if you do have a very athletic team, then you have teams getting in behind you, and there's no way a goalkeeper gets to that ball first.
Yeah.
So that's just one way of doing it. And what I'll probably do is write a few activities that addresses the flat back four and what I think are the prerequisites to playing it. Like I said, U14 I think is a good time to do it for me. Maybe U13 if you're dealing with a very athletic, astute bunch of players, but that's few and far between.
Yeah, that's tough. Yeah, that's tough. Well, I mean, what you're talking about being connected too, it's not only important defensively, but when you get possession. And if you have your center backs and they're all messed up, and I mean it's very hard as a center back to receive the ball and not have anyone to go to.
Right.
I mean I've been in that position myself, and it's nice when I receive the ball and the other center back's dropping off from me. The right back is in a position where I can play them. Left back is in a position where I can gives me another passing angle.
Yeah.
And but it takes some time to develop that for sure. So probably something we'll definitely have to have some more videos and some other items to really kind of cover it.
Sure, because it's a huge topic, and there's so much that you have to take into consideration. I certainly will not be worried about a system of play with very young players.
Right.
I'll be worried more about individual competence.
Right.
And devising a system of play that caters to the strengths of your players.
Well, I know, like we've talked about before, it's 6v6. I mean, it's a very much a one-on-one matchup kind of game.
Mm-hmm.
So your focus is going to be on individual defending.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to 8v8, maybe now you're defending some in pairs. So you're having pressure and cover. Not always the balance aspect of it until you get maybe more players on the field. So it's something we can kind of build up to, like you're saying, teach them how to defend individually, teach them how to defend in pairs, teach them how to defend as a unit. And it's something that's going to have to happen over time.
Yeah, it goes from individual to small group to large group.
Yeah.
And if you're a new coach with an 11-a-side team, the more players that you're dealing with, the harder it is to identify when things are going wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to start off with smaller numbers because the game is played in groups of 4s and 5s all over the field.
Right.
So if they can sort it out that way, then it makes for a much more successful collective effort when it comes to 11-a-side.
Yeah. I've been watching my son plays on their U13 team. They're just now exploring the 11-a-side.
Yeah.
And they're getting a little bit better with their defensive shape, but one of the problems they're running into is just bad individual technique.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at this point that's costing them more problems than actually just not understanding the concept of where to be.
Yeah.
When one of the backs comes up, just bat out of hell, runs right at the forward, and the guy makes one move,
It's over.
it's over. That's an individual problem. So
and think about that when you're relying on a system. So
Yeah.
if your back four is flat and the outside back is getting beat all day long, you know, one player being beat means that your whole team is now out defensively.
Right. Yeah.
Which is why I prefer, you know, like I said, to teach them fundamentals of defending, the principles of defending, so that it teaches them when they can play without cover, and that comes with an element of trust and individual efficiency.
Right. I know as a center back, if my outside back continues to get beat and I'm having to do a lot more extra work, we're going to have a conversation.
Yeah, and your starting position is going to have to change. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Your starting position has to change.
No doubt about it. So, well, there you go. More to come on the Flat Back 4. In the meantime, if you have any other questions you'd like answered, if you just head on over to www.ultimatesoccercoaching.com, you'll see a Contact Us button on the menu bar, and hit that, send us your question, and we'll be glad to answer it. So until next time, have a good one.